Then the stockbroker tells you that the banks are allowing tycoons such as yourself to borrow money to buy stocks. It is called buying on margin. He then explains what that means. You will still invest your $100, but since the margin is 10%, you can borrow $900 and invest a total of $1,000 to buy 10 shares at $100 apiece. Then if your shares go up 10% to a total of $1,100, you'll make a $100 profit, which means you will double your original investment. You can double your money with just a small 10% increase in the price of your stock. Now you can start to see just how you can really become as rich as John D. Rockefeller. So you agree and purchase 10 shares for a total of $1,000. And as I said, this is what the Federal Reserve was doing with all of the new money they were creating. It was being loaned out to stock market tycoons. Then the stockbroker then says, there's one more thing we need to understand. Hold on. The banks are loaning you this money on what they call a 24-hour broker call loan, which means that they can call me and ask me to call the loan, and you will have 24 hours to sell your stock and pay off the loan. But all you can think about is the prospect of becoming as rich as John D. Rockefeller, and with the rising stock market, what's the danger? You certainly can sell your stock in 24 hours and pay off the loan. So you leave the broker's office, and now you can soon buy, that yacht you've always wanted. And as time passes, the stock market is climbing and everybody's happy. Until October the 24th, 1929, when the Federal Reserve Board told the banks to call all of their 24-hour broker call loans, and stockbrokers all over the country started selling the shares of all of their tycoons, and all of the tycoons would get a call asking them to come in to the office to talk about this. But notice that all of the tycoons had to make the same visit, which means that everyone is trying to sell their stocks at the same time. And when that happened, the stock market started dropping rapidly. So let's now see what happened when your broker sold your 10 shares of Epperson Popsicle. Now let's just say that he was able to find a buyer for, say, $400. So he would sell your stocks for $400, and he would then give you a check for that amount so you could pay off the loan of $900. But notice this, you owe the bank a total of $900, and now you have only $400, which means you still owe $500. The stockbroker would then say, how are you going to come up with the additional $500? And you would say, gee, this is all you could get for my 10 shares. I'm really sorry, but the stock market's down, and I understand that's the best you could do. The stockbroker will express his deep concern and then repeat his question. How are you going to come up with the additional $500? You will say that you did not cause the drop in the stock market, and that you were diligent in coming in within the 24-hour period just as soon as you got your phone call. And once again, the stockbroker would explain the bank loaned you $900, and they will expect $900 when he, the broker, tenders it to the bank as full payment of the loan. And you respond, yes, I'm aware of that, but that's all I got for my stocks, and I don't have any assets that I can sell to pay the $500. And the broker says, you owe $900. When will you return with the money? This is how the Federal Reserve created the 1929 crash. Let me show you the stock market index for these years. In 1929, the index was $138, and And in 1921, after the Depression of 1920 started, it was $66. In 1922, it was $469. And in 1932, it was $58. When I worked in Oakland, California, my boss lived through the crash of '29, and he said that hotel rooms were rented by the hour. You could rent one on the 10th floor for 4 hours and decide you wanted to get to the ground rather quickly by jumping out the window. And he said it was common to see tycoons who couldn't make the broker call laying on the sidewalk covered with a white sheet as he walked to his office each morning. In other words, the tycoons could not meet their broker call, and they had no other assets to pay off the loan, so they took a short walk to the ground floor from the 10th floor, and they would leave their family with the problems of handling the debt. But as both John Maynard Keynes and John Kenneth Galbraith have told us, not all tycoons took the short walk. Some of them got out of the market in 1928. One such tycoon who did exactly that was Joseph P. Kennedy, the father of President John Kennedy and his brothers Bobby and Teddy. Joseph Kennedy got out by selling all of his stock in the winter of 1928 and 29, about a year before the stock market crash. Now please don't jump to conclusions that somehow Joseph P. Kennedy got advance information about the coming stock market crash in '29. Of course not. He was out early because he was a shrewd tycoon. And author Gary Allen said this about what he did with his money. The profits he took from the sale of his holdings were not reinvested, but were kept in cash. And so after the crash reached a low in prices, the father brought his cash back to the market and started buying at a low price. Yes, indeed, while the process impoverishes many, it actually enriches some. Let me now add the comments made by Congressman Lewis McFadden, chairman of the House Committee on Banking from 1920 to 1931, meeting the times of both of these depressions. These are his comments made after the crash of 1929. We have in this country one of the most corrupt institutions the world has ever seen. I refer to the Federal Reserve Board of the Federal Reserve Banks. When the Federal Reserve Act was passed, the people of these United States did not perceive that a world system was being set up. A superstate controlled by the international bankers, acting together to enslave the world for their own pleasure. The Fed has usurped the government. It controls everything here, and it controls all of our foreign relations. It makes and breaks governments plural, at will. I charge them with the crime of having treasonably conspired and acting against the peace and security of the United States, and with having conspired to destroy constitutional government. Some people think the Federal Reserve Banks are United States institutions. They are not. They are private credit monopolies which prey upon the people of the United States for the benefit of themselves and their foreign customers. The Federal Reserve Banks are the agents of the foreign central banks. He further amplified his remarks with this comment that the cause of the Depression was not an accident. It was a carefully contrived occurrence. The international bankers sought to bring about a condition of despair here so that they might emerge as the rulers of us all. And during that speech on May the 23rd, 1933, the congressman brought impeachment charges against the Federal Reserve Board with this comment: I charge them with having taken $80 billion from the United States government in the year 1928. The Federal Reserve Board was not impeached, but history, to my knowledge, has never answered the question as to why they were not. And Congress has ignored these and other warnings for well over 200 years, all to the detriment of the American people. This last statement of the congressman was confirmed by Dr. Carroll Quigley in his book entitled Tragedy and Hope, published in 1966. By the way, Dr. Quigley was Bill Clinton's professor at Georgetown University from 1964 to 1968, and we know that Quigley's book was required reading for Quigley's courses. We know that Mr. Clinton praised Dr. Quigley during a live, nationally televised speech he gave on the night of July 16, 1992. That means that what Quigley believed in, Clinton believes in. Now this is what Bill Clinton read in Quigley's book. The powers of financial capitalism had another far-reaching aim. Nothing less than to create a world system of financial control in private hands, able to dominate the political system of each country and the economy of the world as a whole. This system was to be controlled by the central banks of the world, acting in concert by secret agreements arrived at in frequent private meetings and conferences. And this confirms why the American people do not know much about the Federal Reserve. It is because they operate in secrecy, because they're not controlled by the U.S. government. They're controlled by the central banks of the world acting in concert. The Federal Reserve stands convicted by the evidence. But it is important at this point to discuss other things that Dr. Quigley taught Bill Clinton. He wrote that the financial element was controlled by a much larger and more powerful group that he called an international Anglophile network. The word Anglophile means that this network is primarily English. This is what he wrote on page 950 of his book. There does exist, and has existed for a generation, an international Anglophile network. So that means that the banks are controlled by an international network out to control the world through the central banks, and that this network controls the elections for the presidency in the United States. This is what Quigley wrote on page 73. The networks expected to control both political parties equally. Some of them intended to contribute to both in order to conceal their own influence and allow the electorate to believe they were exercising their own free choice. Notice what Dr. Quigley thinks of the American voter. He believes that we're too stupid to see how they control both candidates for president equally. That means that no matter who we elect, that candidate was a supporter of this international network. And one of the ways this network controls the two political parties is through an organization known as the Council on Foreign Relations, created by the network in 1921. Dr. Quigley reported on page 950, this organization has played a very significant role in the history of the United States. And to show us that Bill Clinton learned his lessons well from Dr. Quigley, Bill Clinton joined the Council on Foreign Relations in 1988. You might want to keep all of that in mind the next time you cast your vote in a presidential election.